This one is ready. All you have to do is turn it on, so you can ask her if she wants to. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. All right, so this is the last CUSOTA meeting of the year. For some of us, this will be the last one in attendance. We're all leaving within the next few weeks. Some of us are leaving this week, some of us in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so good luck to all of us. This is the last one that I'm leading, and it's only for a minute as I hand it over to Sarah, so thank you guys for working with me this year. It's been a lot of fun, and I've tried my hardest to get you guys your full dean's reimbursement, and it looks like it might actually happen. We will let you guys know. The new team will let you know by the end of this month, okay? So look forward to that. You'll be hearing from them. If you have any questions on that, let us know after the meeting, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Sarah, and we can start our last meeting.
All right, thank you. Be gracious to me as this is the first time. I'm not as smooth as JP, but we'll get there. All right, so welcome to the last meeting of CUSOTA for the year. Got it. So thank you again, just for me to you guys, to the exec team of this last year. We could all just give them a round of applause. They've been really great and have done a really good job leading this year. And welcome to our new board. I'm really excited to get to work with each of them as well this year. And just a reminder, this is the last couple days of OT month, so you know, if you haven't shared anything on social media or gotten the word out, really consider doing that, as it's really important to continue to advocate for our profession. So, starting with volunteering.
All right, still the old officer for this one last time. So yeah, happy, sad face. This is the last time we'll be up here. I've been part of CUSOTA for 2 years now, so this is bittersweet leaving. 2 quick things I have to talk about. If you did Bella Dance this semester, I know that they still have a couple more classes, and then the what's that called? Recital is, I think, in the first week of May. So once you have done your last class, fill out that form just like last semester, and submit that. And if you're an OT3 and you did some out-of-state volunteering while you're on your fieldworks, fill out that form. These links should be in the email that goes out after the meeting. And then final thoughts for me, just huge thank you to everybody who's been volunteering this past year. Since last summer, we have nearly 1,000 hours of service from all of the members. A big round of applause, everybody. Yay. And just a couple things I'd like to talk about and point out is the reason we kind of harp on the service thing a lot is because service is a really large part of CUSOTA's purpose and mission. In addition to that, Creighton's Ignatius values, one of them is men and women form with others. So by going to the school and joining this club, service is community duty. It's something that's very important to us. It's not just something to get the reimbursement. It's, you know, it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be really good for you. In addition to that, grades are always obviously important, but service on your resume is going to demonstrate your ability to work in the community and that you can work with all kinds of people, which is extremely OT. And then finally, the more service hours you have, and a few other qualifications, puts you in the running for Member of the Year, which is what Carly Slovak won this year. Did that really well. Woo! It's awesome. You get an award, you get a picture taken, everyone points and smiles. So it's a fun time. So yeah, I like to pass that on to you guys, pass it on to the new class to keep that going. Service is very important, so we really want to make sure we keep up by helping the community of Omaha while we're all here. Okay, done. Thanks.
All right, and our AOT liaison, Caitlin.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Just some quick updates. Okay. So concessions was a great success. We made a total $5,119.69, which is incredible for an hourly rate of $10.73 an hour. Congratulations. And any questions on that? Nope. Also, if I emailed you and I still have your concessions check, please come see me up front before we end today. And then just, yay, conference was great. We had a huge attendance. Just a reminder that notes from these sessions are still available through the app for download. If you have any questions about those, please let me know. I think they're only available for another week. Just remember to stay informed in the future about what's going on in policy and just through the AOT website. There are some surveys that Bridget Brodkowski sent out through email. So those are regarding the alumni event and the Dean's Lunch. So if you want to give your feedback on those, be sure to do those surveys. Also, congratulations to Jillian Pinder, who is next year's contact and AOTA liaison. So thank you.
And our treasurer.
Hi, everybody. Okay, thank you. Just a big thank you to everybody who participated in buying clothing and everything. It's been an awesome year for me, and thanks again for the opportunity. I just want to welcome Sam as you guys' new treasurer. I'm going to kind of pass the torch to her. And if there's any, receipts you guys have, I'm going to tell you guys to now contact Sam. And she can always still contact me. So again, thank you guys so much. You guys have been awesome. So.
Sure. I just want to say that if any of you have like apparel suggestions or anything cool that you want done this next year, that you can email me and I will take them into consideration.
And good luck to everybody on their finals and the work.
All right, and the last thing from our exec team, our ASD rep has a nice little presentation to show us from her kind of conference.
Yes, thanks. Okay, so part of the ASD's role is to attend an Assembly of Students Delegates meeting at conference and then bring the information that I learned back to you guys. So that's what we're going to be going over today. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. There were really two main topics that we discussed, advocacy and leadership. So those are the things I'll be going over today. So to start off, one of our speakers was Elizabeth Hart, who, so I can see my notes. She is a recent grad. She's now practicing in gerontology and mental health. But during her level 2 fieldwork, she had the opportunity to work with AOTA's federal affair teams. And so she just has a couple suggestions about her time, about what she learned while she was a fieldwork student on Capitol. So she said that more than 80% of OT practitioners depend on federal and state funding reimbursement. That's a huge number. So because of the vast majority of us depending on federal funding for reimbursement, the public has a large stake in our services. Policymakers are charged with protecting the public interest, so we as OTs need to be able to defend the value of what we do to the legislators and the regulatory agencies. Every form you write, she says, is a form of advocacy. So she said that if you had time to brush your teeth this morning, you have time to advocate for your profession. And everyone needs to because it's critical to the livelihood of our profession. She tells us that from her experience, we have more power than you think. Power was a large topic that multiple speakers talked about. They said that as students and OT professionals, we have more power than we think. We are the experts in the room, and legislators are looking to learn from us. We are the ones who know about the medical field and what our patients need, so we should act as the experts in the field. The next really interesting thing I learned was that passing of the bill is just the beginning. In fact, so since state associations are really the ones who implement the bill, we have to be the ones to make sure that it's implemented positively for OT. So state associations are critical to AOTA's advocacy efforts. They are on the ground where legislation is implemented. So it's critical to stay involved in not only AOTA, but our state associations. And much of the work that AOTA does isn't actually revenue generating. This includes the federal affairs team, the communications team, and the practice team that develops resources to help us all be better practitioners. So one thing that I thought was cool that she said was think about your memberships in AOTA and your state associations as being insurance for your profession. If those don't succeed, you will not succeed because your profession will not succeed. So how do we advocate? There are really 3 avenues for advocacy. There's AOTA, the educating legislators and staff. There's the grassroots lobbyists and AOTA PAC. AOT PAC is the American Occupational Therapy Political Action Committee. And for those of you who don't know, that's what we donate the funds we make from the silent auction to. So what is it? AOT PAC is the political action arm of AOTA that complements AOTA's public policy agenda and supports its lobbying efforts. Why is it so essential? Because a lot of people don't know what AOTA or what OT is, right? So we have to be the ones to advocate for it, and especially in the political arena where healthcare, education, and fundraising decisions are made. So just to give you a little perspective, this is the amount of funds that each PAC raised in 2013 and 2015 from PT, OT, and speech. So you can see in both years, PT was way above the rest, okay? But really the scary numbers is that in 2015, speech, which has almost always been behind OT, they actually surpassed us. And we know from Dr. Mayer's class that speech is kind of trying to take over our role in cognition therapy. So they can continue to do that if they continue to raise more funds than us. So AOTA has approximately 55,000 members. If each of those just gave $5, we could raise over $275,000. Here are the student participants who participated in the AOT PAC Student Challenge, and Creighton was recognized as one of those, so congratulations. So why should you be the voice of OT? Most of all, because you need to advocate for your patients. That's the biggest one. And second of all, policymakers listen to you. You, like I said, you're the experts. You're the ones who they're looking to for advice. So how do you advocate? We can participate by being active members of AOTA and our state associations. We can advocate using grassroots communication, like calling your senators or emailing them. And you can contribute to AOT PAC. So here's the hot issues right now. And if you don't listen to the rest of my presentation, that's fine, because I know you'll be following this link to write a letter to your member of Congress. So if each one of us in the room did that, we can make a big difference. So moving on to the second topic of leadership, this will go quick. If any of you had any doubt that you can be a leader or make an impact in this profession, look to Amy Lamb. She's the current president-elect of AOTA and a Creighton grad, woohoo! And she's also one of the youngest AOTA presidents. So I don't have time to go over her entire speech that she gave us, but these were her main points. Get involved early, don't underestimate your power, and find your mentor. Okay, so the rest of these slides are just some really good leadership opportunities for you to get involved in. I'll go over them very briefly, but if any of you are interested and have any more questions, please feel free to email me. So first off, the ASD Steering Committee elections. This is an advisory committee of student leaders that leads the Assembly of Student Delegates. So the meeting that I went to at National Conference, you would be the one leading that. And it would be a really great opportunity to meet students from all over the nation. All students are encouraged to apply, definitely not just the ASD representatives. In fact, most of the ones on the steering committee this year had not been ASD representatives. There's the Emerging Leaders Development Program. This is an opportunity for students and new grads to develop leadership skills by being paired with a professional in the field. It's a one-year program and it's really all about mentorship. The COOL database I have spoken about before. It's an online database where you can sign up for leadership opportunities, and then when opportunities that match your interests become available, they will contact you. If you are interested in writing at all about some topic areas or have some topic areas you would like to see in the OT student pulse, you can either write for them or submit an article idea. You can also join the communications advocacy team. Here's some special interest sections you can be involved in. The Multicultural Diversity Initiative Network. The student's role is to advocate for diversity and inclusion among peers, classmates, and friends at educational institutions. And there's a number of those, a number of different clubs within that. Here's a great scholarship opportunity for everyone to apply for. Do you know the application deadline is May 13th? AOTA National Student Conclave is kind of like conference, but it's only for students. And so if anyone's interested in that, that's November 18th and 19th in Michigan. And finally, we all know the Centennial Vision, but here is the new 2025 vision that was announced at conference. So it reads, occupational therapy maximizes health, well-being, and quality of life for all people, populations, and communities through effective solutions that facilitate participation in everyday living. So that's exciting. That's what AOTA and the OT profession will be striving towards in the next however many years until 2025. Okay, and that's everything I have. I know that was super fast, but I was trying to make it brief so we can get to our guest speaker. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you for a great year. I'm excited for the new officer team. Brady will be your new ASD delegate next year. So thanks everyone, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, everyone, for those that are watching online, password is Benelli. And now we're gonna actually go to our guest speaker, Michelle Clayton. 1 sec. We're gonna hand out some handouts. We don't have enough for everyone, so we're gonna put a few per table if everyone can share with them. We are going to attach it to the weekly email, so if you don't get one and would like one, you can print it off yourself or save it, and the one online will be in color, so that'll make it a little better for you. I'm also going to send out an email right now, which is going to have a survey for her. So if you could go ahead before you leave today, or right when you get out, go on and fill it out. It's only 4 questions, so it won't take too much of your time. So if you would, go ahead and give your hands together. So for Michelle. So this one should hold, this one should
Will you say that if they have to take up for the silent auction, I'll be here afterwards?
Things for silent auction are up here to the right, so don't leave at the end. Please come up to the front and you can deal with Emily and get that taken care of. As well as at the end, come forward and grab more snacks, okay? So we'll definitely have that. You're good to go.
All right, you guys hear me okay? Well, I want to say thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. If you worked in with the group that I work with in the Safe Patient Handling at Nirvana, you would know this is on our bucket list to be able to come and speak with students, because if you can start early, hopefully this will certainly Technology. No, isn't it? Is that better? Is that better? Okay, we'll try holding it. I think I put that up here. I'm kind of a hands talker, so, but anyways, thank you for inviting me to come here. I'm really excited to be here. Obviously, I am not in the technology age, so that's why I have handouts versus a PowerPoint presentation, so I have to be old. And you drag your feet kicking and screaming with technology. But hopefully, if I'm ever asked or come back again, I'll have a PowerPoint with videos and all that good stuff. But anyway, so what you'll end up getting either via email or in front of you is I just have a quick handout for you. The front page is just giving you an idea of just some of the research that's out there about safe patient handling. And then on the following pages, there are some video clips of some techniques, and I'll be talking about some of those briefly as well. But first of all, like Joe Paul said, my name is Michelle Clayton. I'm employed at Madonna Rehabilitation Hospital in Lincoln. I've been there for almost 11 years, and I work in their complex medical unit, which is otherwise known as LTAC or long-term acute care. I've been on their safe patient handling committee since about 2006. If you ever have a chance to go to conferences on safe patient handling, I would encourage you to do that because we need everybody working on this. But anyway, so initially the safe patient handling group was developed, or program was developed, due to high rates of injuries with nursing staff. And this came down from the Veterans Hospital and the work of Audrey Nelson. So that's kind of where it all started. And just so you know that many work injuries result from manual patient handling and related activities. And in this one research that was done in either 2008 or 2009, 27% were moderately to severely injured in OT and PT. In 1 month, 48% had mild to moderate injury in that one study. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're moving with your patients, especially if they're more complex or they're requiring more assistance. A lot of times in school, we learn, yes, body mechanics, but we're also transferring our classmates, and we're able-bodied, you know. So even though we don't try to help, we certainly are helping and holding ourselves in a position. So like I said earlier, we learn body mechanics, right? You know, lift with your legs, keeping your back straight, that type of thing. But what this has shown in some of the studies is that it does not prevent an injury. Although it may help keep you in a better position, it doesn't help. The National Institute of Occupational Health or Safety and Health, NIOSH, states that weight manually handled by workers in industry is limited to 50 pounds under ideal conditions. And patient handling is not an ideal condition. And so some of the studies that are out there, Waters in 2007 was one of the big articles that came out where no caregiver should be lifting greater than 35 pounds. So at Madonna, our nursing staff has a 35-pound lifting restriction. So anybody greater than mod assist, in a sense, they have to use some sort of equipment or assistive device. We're not quite there yet with therapy, but we're working on it. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Our patients don't have handles, they move, they're not necessarily cooperative. All those influence and increase our risks. Definitely technology is moving towards that safe patient handling, but also a lot more needs to be developed. So keeping your creative minds out there to help maybe with some of that technology. 11 states currently have enacted legislation on safe patient handling. Nebraska is not one of them at the time. And then there are some concerns because people, I know at least at Madonna, when we put forth our program, they said, well, if you use equipment, people are going to become more dependent, that type of thing. And so some of the studies that have been done, one of them was by DRAW on study of ADLs, because I know you guys are OTs. The affected the effects of the Safe Patient Handling Program on self-care outcomes, there was no evidence that this program that they had developed affected those outcomes negatively on the FIMS scores, if you guys are familiar with the FIMS. There were other studies that were done showing that if you put a patient in a device and you use the device, it automatically makes the person dependent, or it decreases their activation of those muscles that were required to do maybe a sit-to-stand activity. And they found that to be true if you're not cueing the patient. So if you cue the patient for engagement with an activity, then it showed an increase in that muscle activity that you were trying to get them to do, which is great. So, you know, you could potentially use that piece of equipment for strengthening or increased flexibility. One of the studies with patients that had a stroke, they looked at the movement patterns. And again, when they used an assisted device, it decreased that activation of those certain muscle groups. They also looked at clinician assisted, and that increased the muscles, and then a combination of the both, which also increased the muscle activation. One of the aha moments that I had reading that article was that even though the device changes the motor pattern with the clinician's assistant, so does the clinician cueing them. So it's not like the person is just sitting. If you have a handout, if you turn to the second page, just kind of keep in mind as you're heading out into clinicals and stuff like that as well, using equipment may allow you to be able to do more with your patients. So if your patient's fearful, if they haven't stood for, say, 6 weeks, or they've been maybe had fallen, or maybe they had a near miss at the hospital that they were at before, that fear and anxiety of moving can be very real. And so using a piece of equipment might help decrease that fear regardless of the person's diagnosis, complexity, size, and just increases that chance for early mobilization, but then also number of repetitions or number of minutes that patient's able to participate in an activity. Just a couple graphs there to show you kind of where we've been at Madonna. In 2006, we had work comp claims over $1 million. As you can see on the graph, if you're able to see it, we're now down to about $62,000, and that's injuries with costs. So that's patients or employees that have to go to see a physician. So significantly has decreased over the last few years. But keep in mind, it's just one person that potentially could be injured doing an event. So if you have one person that gets injured and they have to have, say, back surgery or something like that, I mean, we're looking at probably, what, $50,000 already? So that's one of your friends, one of your classmates that gets injured and then maybe can't work again, you know. So keeping that in mind, it could be you. The second graph there just shows the patient movement injuries with costs, and we went from 52 down to 4. So we're really excited about that. But you can see the programs do work. And then the last little kind of table there, before you get to the pictures, looks from 2005 to 2015, just in some odd numbers and some even years there. But what I'm showing you there is the case index mix. And what that indicates is kind of the complexity of your patient type. So you can see our complexity has definitely increased from 1.05 to 0.16. But then also if you look at the second row there, the FIM change from admission to discharge has also increased. So obviously the program that we have in place for nursing isn't necessarily impacting what we do as clinicians, or that FIM gain, or that activity, or that increase in their ability to do activities or participate. Okay, so then that's the boring stuff, right? So let's get to the fun stuff. I'm going to show you a few techniques and some devices that we have. So hopefully when you get out to your clinics, or you're looking for new jobs, or getting ready to do interviews, you can ask the facility, do you have a safe patient handling program? What kind of equipment do you have? That type of thing. Kind of put that in your thought process, because I mean that's really going to be important. You don't want to have to go into a job setting where you're the only OT and you're required to get this person dressed and you don't have any assistance, and you're having to manually handle this person that can't help you, that maybe weighs 300 pounds. So rolling is one of the most high risk activities you can do. And we probably have all seen it, or we probably have done it. You know, you have a person on a bed, one leg up on the bed, right? You lean over, pull them towards you, or you do one of these, push them that way. And then you have to hold them there, even if you have somebody that helps you, right? Those static holds can be really difficult and hard. So anyways, we're gonna start with a basic transfer. I'm gonna ask for 2 volunteers, if I can have 2 volunteers. I'm just gonna have a seat in the chair.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna remove the armrest. You guys hear me okay? I'm gonna remove the armrest just so you guys kind of have an idea of where things are positioned. But if you're gonna be doing a squat pivot transfer, you know, so the person's not coming up to a complete standing position, you're gonna have to remove the armrest anyways, right? Or if you're doing a slide board transfer. So this technique that I'm gonna show you can be used with either that squat pivot transfer when the person's not coming up into a standing position, or if the person is doing a slide board and again, not coming up to the sitting position. Sheila. Michelle, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay, so typically we've been taught in school to put the gate belt around our waist, right? Because that's where it goes. It's a gate belt. It's used for walking. There's controversy over gate belts if you didn't know that. So anyways, what I'm going to suggest to you is if you have a patient that has wounds on their tummy or tubes and stuff like that, you know, they might not want to put that gate belt around their stomach, or they might want you to put it up underneath their armpits, you know, up higher. It's not really going to do you a whole lot of good up here, right? So you're going to end up grabbing on the pants anyways. So what I'm going to suggest to you is taking your gate belt. And what we're going to do, I love gate relations. What we're going to do is we're going to suggest to you is that you put the gate belt down around the person's hips instead of around their waist.
No.
All right. What that does is it's going to allow you to shift that person forward onto their legs, and you're not going to have to worry about that gate belt riding up, right? We've all done it. Rides up their back. Okay, then it ends up underneath their armpits.
If you want.
I'm going to show you the technique that I go to as my go-to technique when I'm doing a squat pivot transfer. But you might like to have your patient put their arms different places and stuff like that. But just to kind of help show you the idea of what's going on, I like to block both knees. So I like to block both knees here. I'm going to have her hold onto my arm and lean over my shoulder. Now you can see our break time. You can see my feet are kind of staggered a little bit, but I'm not going to lift her with my shoulders and my neck. I'm just going to weight shift her onto her feet. See, I'm just dropping my seat, and then I can shift her over. She's helping me, but so you can see how that's so much easier than doing this. Can you come back here? I'll tell you one of my greatest pet peeves is when I see one person put their foot between the patients, like this around the waist, and they do this for somebody. Because you're putting all that stress up through your back and your neck. Okay, so that's pretty cool, huh? All right, but then you can say, well, Michelle, that's fine, but I'm really tall, I'm really short, or I can't get my legs around their knees, right? Either they have a lot of adipose tissue, or they have something going on where you can't get their knees together. You need a little bit more assistance. Well, if you can still do their knees, but let's say you're really short, really tall, you can do this, right? Okay, so that would be another way you can do it. Or you take your second gate belt. You're going to put it around their knees. Is this new stuff?
Oh, it is.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. That's why all the teenagers stand covered.
Okay, so you take your gate belt
You make sure that the buckle's on the back part of the leg, making sure if it's a really long one that you're not going to step on the rest of the belt. Hanging out here. So let's say I can't get Sheila's legs together. I can't get low enough because I'm fairly tall, or, you know, I can't get my knees around there or for whatever reason. Take a gait belt. Now you use one leg and transfer over. Okay, so that's really good for the transfers, right? Yeah. So then you're like, well, I want to know I can stand with somebody. So we're going to move the gait belt from the hips back up to the waist. So this is, all these things are just to try to decrease the risk or the workload. You're still having to work, but hopefully you're not having to work quite as hard. So now if you wanted to work on standing with her, typically if I would be working on standing with her, we didn't have the gait around their legs. I'm going to be like this, right? And then I'm going to keep my knees in front of her, and I'm going to be kind of in this weird crouched position. Okay, let's stand for a minute, right? You know, and she's standing really nice for me, but maybe I have somebody who's hemiplegic, or maybe I have somebody that's trying to push backwards on me and stuff like that. So that completely changes everything. But now with the gait belt around, I now can help support her knees in this position. So if she buckles on me, I can help her. I can lower her. I can even help her stand without putting myself kind of in that awkward position. So those are a couple things.
Felt better for me too.
Yeah. And then, you know, I mean, and the people that I've used it with, you know, obviously you have to keep track of, you know, their skin condition on their shins and stuff like that. But I mean, if it's one of those things, you can pat it if needed. If they have a big gaping wound, I mean, obviously you wouldn't necessarily want to use a gait belt, or if they've had some sort of incision or wound on their hip, you know, obviously you have to be careful where you put the gait belt. But again, it might decrease that risk of injury that you might have having it here, right? And trying to do this with somebody as the gait belt is sliding up. Yeah. It depends. I mean, it depends. Patient specific a lot of times, but if it is somebody who's a little bit more dependent, I will put it underneath there just because I know they're not necessarily going to be helpful. What I also like about having the person leaning this direction or going like this is if you have somebody who does like push, you know, you have that controversy of pushing, this kind of helps them stay forward or keeps them from pushing backwards too. Okay. Thank you for having me. I sometimes.
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
Okay, one of the other things that we have, thank you very much. Oh, I'm good, thank you. Another thing that we have, yes. I wouldn't think so if it's just during a transfer. Obviously, you're not going to put it on and leave it on, but it would be just during the transfer that you're moving the person. Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to leave it on the person and then just walk away. But, one of the other pieces of equipment that we have at the Donna is called a repositioning sheet. I'll hold it up here for you. It's got 5 loop straps on the either side. What these can be used for, excuse me, is what they're called, repositioning. You can scoot somebody up in the bed, you can scoot them down in the bed. We have quite a few ceiling lifts at our hospital, so that's really nice because they're readily available and right there. But what you do is you just hook up each strap to the hook on the lift, and then you can scoot them up. So it's none of this manual keep hoeing with the draw sheet, right? Ready, 1, 2, 3, boosting them up. The lift does all the work for you. What I really like about this from a therapeutic standpoint is rolling with patients
or repositioning them at the end of a session. So let's say you have a patient, again, we talked right at the beginning of the demonstrations about rolling with somebody. As an OT, you're probably looking at scapular function. Are they able to reach the bed rail? Can they pull themselves forward into that roll if they can access the bed rail? All those components. But maybe they can't go all the way, or maybe they have some arm dysfunction, and so you're working on trying to get them, you know, a little bit farther onto their side, or once they're on their side, maybe they can do more, right? So if you have something similar to this, you don't necessarily need to have anything like this. They make little clips that you can hook to a bed sheet and hook up onto a lift. But what you can do is, if you have the picture, you hook up just one side, and then the lift goes up, and the person rolls to, you know, their side. You can vary the angle that the person is rolling on. And so what that does is now that person's kind of in that semi-lying position. And then what you can do is you can then take your hands. So now you're not having to hold the person in that position, right? And try to facilitate at the same time. The sheet's holding them. Now you can take your hands wherever you need to put them and maybe facilitate that roll even more with that person. And maybe now, because they don't have to go the whole direction, or maybe they only have to maybe work just within that shorter range, then you can do maybe more repetitions. So, or maybe they're able to participate in a longer amount of time within that task. Versus before, traditionally, maybe you only were able to do 3 repetitions and they were like done. So now, as they get stronger and get better, then you can back off that sheet until they can maybe do the full roll themselves. So that's something that's kind of cool about this. Also, at the end of our session, you know, patients have to be repositioned every 2 hours. Well, you know, you go in there, you unpack them of their pillows at the start of their session, and you work with them, whatever you're doing, arms, legs, rolling, that type of thing. But then at the end, we probably should reposition them back, you know, on their side, especially if they have some wound issues or some skin issues that they're battling. And then what this is really nice, love it. You know, you get the lift, you hook up just the one side, you roll them up onto their side, you stuff your pillows in there, you lay them back down, they're done. It's not like you're having to like manually then try to push them, hold them with one hand and stuff the pillow, you know, or pull them towards you and then trying to reach around them. You don't have to call in generally a second person unless you have a facility that requires 2 people, you know, for any sort of lift or repositioning, that type of thing. But again, just something simple, you know, that you could maybe use to help, again, decrease that risk. On one of the other, we'll get to it in just a little bit. So another thing that you can potentially use is a limb sling. So, and again, you don't necessarily have to have like special pieces of devices like a limb sling. Sometimes you can just find things within your facility. So we have like we call it, it's called a Vera lift, which is our sit to stand lift. And it has, you know, kind of like a sling that comes around your torso, and it hooks up to the frame and it helps the person stand up. Okay. So I love to use it with the overhead lift. So similar to a limb sling in a sense, you could certainly use a limb sling, but to do the activities, but maybe you don't have this. What this is really nice for is you can hook it up with the lift. You can support a heavy arm, maybe if you're trying to isolate some wrist movement, or if you just need to support it for maybe some dressing changes, maybe you do wound care, or maybe you do burn cares or something like that, and you need somebody to help hold that arm, but yet you can't physically hold it while you're doing whatever it is that you need to do, and somebody else trying to hold that heavy limb after a long period of time, you know, can be pretty taxing for somebody. We all know that if you stand there with your arm out straight, you know, eventually it goes down. But these are called our limb slings. So again, holding that heavy limb if you needed, if you're talking about hygiene care or catheter care insertion, maybe you work with a group of nurses and they're like, you know, hey, Sheila, I'm having a really hard time with, you know, 235. You know, we just can't get that leg where it needs to be, you know, for whatever it might be. You know, maybe it's hygiene cares or something like that. Use a limb lifter, right? Even if the person is laying on their side, sorry, I don't have a lift, but you can help support that leg up so that somebody isn't having to physically hold that leg up into that air, you know, or maybe just, you know, for again, some sort of wound care or something like that would be appropriate with this. Again, that Vera sling that we have, that's kind of like the sit to stand. If you don't have one of these, you could use that. It has loop straps, just like this does. that you can attach to the lift. And you can kind of see some pictures in there of what I'm talking about in the handout. Another thing that I like to use either the limb sling for or the Vera sling for you, which is the sit to stand lift, putting somebody in quadruped, right? So, you know, trying to work on some of that earlier development type stuff with them. You know, maybe this person's had a traumatic brain injury and really trying to get them kind of in that all fours position. Or maybe you want some weight bearing through the arms. Or maybe you're working on some head control, right? The person needs head control. Rolling the person over onto one of these and then hooking up to the lift. Now the lift is helping you lift them up into quadruped. If that person's arm goes out underneath them, then the lift is going to hold them. They're not going to go crashing down to the mat that you're working on, you know, face planting it maybe if they don't have any, you know, ability to protect themselves, but then you're not having to try to catch them in midair as well either. You know, a lot of times the old fashioned way was you stand behind them and you pull them up, right? And then you got to hold them there in that standing position while maybe your coworker is, you know, trying to position the arm or, you know, that type of thing. So now this, you know, you can just hook them up and it helps support them. You guys have any questions so far? I know I'm talking like a mile a minute because I could probably talk about this stuff all day. On the third page, what I am showing you there at the very top, if you have a handout, is kind of a PANIS management. So, you know, when you talk about bathing or wound care or something like that, with somebody that maybe has a PANIS, okay, and you need to manage it. Again, that can be hard if you're having to help pull that skin and that adipose tissue up so that you can maybe get under that skin fold for cleaning, or if they have a wound underneath there for wound management. So in the handout, you'll see, obviously in the handout, the person that I was working with did not have a PANIS, it's a pillow. But just for demonstration purposes, we use the repositioning sheet or something similar. You put this underneath the PANIS, right? And then by hooking the repositioning sheet and then hooking it onto the lift, it helps pull that PANIS up to help manage that area down there. So again, you're not having to do that static hold of pushing or pulling.
So are they laying like on their back? Is it would it be uncomfortable like holding it, or you like really get fully under it?
It's probably not going to be completely under them. It's just going to help bring them up a little bit, and that would be something that you would have to consider. You know, what is their respirations? What are they able to tolerate with that extra weight being pulled up in a sense? You know, or does the person have to roll to their side, and can you somehow hook up something to maybe help with, you know, managing it from the side? Yeah. So it's really, I mean, safe patient handling is kind of like just being creative and kind of thinking outside of the box. What equipment do I have? How can I use it to decrease my risk? Excuse me. You know, to make your patient, you know, and yourself safe with whatever activity you're doing. Another item that we have is our friction reducing devices. So actually the one in the picture is called a Maxi Slide, and that's just the brand name. You know, it's just sometimes in facilities you might hear it called a slip sheet or a slider or something like that. They come in all different sizes. Some of them are looped, so they're continuous. I personally don't like the loops. I just haven't found them to be very useful. These that I have here are called Polyglides. Again, it's just the brand name, doesn't really mean anything. Again, they come in different sizes, so depending on what your patient's needs are, you might need a bigger size or a smaller size. But what they're intended for is they're intended to help you do repositioning or decrease the friction of an activity. So typically, you know, you would lay them out on top of, typically what's going to happen is you want your person laying on top of them. And then since they slide together, you can take the top sheet and you can help them scoot up or scoot down, or you can help them roll in the bed, so it's decreasing that friction. I always think of a patient example that I had, a central cord, spinal cord, so he didn't have great use of his arms, but he could kind of wiggle his body and his legs. So helping him to be able to roll by decreasing that friction he was able to work on more repetitions of rolling. Since he wasn't able to use the bed rail, kind of decreased the bed. They also then are able to stay more in the center of the bed as well. The friction reducing devices can't be left underneath the person, but the repositioning sheet can be. So again, just kind of keeping track of your patient's skin and stuff like that. In the handout, also I've shown kind of how to fold it, stick it underneath somebody and then unfold it. Because that can be challenging if you have somebody who, because then you're like, well, Michelle, I have to roll the person. You just told me I shouldn't roll people, right? To get this underneath them. Well, there's techniques. You can either start at the head and unroll it underneath them, or you can start in the middle. I personally like the run rolling and starting in the middle. So that's the one that I showed you. And then you just fold it out underneath them, and then they're ready to go. If they're able to help with their arms at the bed rails, you can ask them to do that. If they're able to bend their knees and help push with their knees, you know, obviously you want somebody that can help, most likely to use these. You don't want to necessarily be doing dependent people, because it's just, again, it's gonna be a little easier, but it's still gonna be, you know, fairly quite a bit of effort to move that person up in the bed. Again, these cannot be left underneath the person, so you have to take them out. So my suggestion is take them out towards the head of the bed versus the foot of the bed, because you just slid them up, right? Position them, and if you pull them out this way, you're just gonna slide them back down. But it works really easy. All you do is you fold it back on itself, and you just pull it out, and they just slide right out from the person. Yeah. Maybe next time we can have a bed and I can show you. But again, there's just all sorts of different pieces of equipment out there. It's just kind of being creative. You know, yes, the sit-to-stand machine maybe isn't the most ideal for you to work on sit-to-stand. Maybe there's a platform because it pushes the person posterior. That's what we have that I don't like. But again, if you encourage the person to engage in it, you know, now maybe are they able to, you know, straighten their legs? Does that increase their ability to toilet? Can they now, you know, be able to do some clothing management, that type of thing? Does the foot plate remove off of the lift? So now can they stand on the ground and they have more of that normal sit-to-stand function? So it's just things like that that you can think of. The limb sling. Maybe you don't have any of this other stuff, but maybe you have something similar to this. So you could put part of this underneath the person. It's got this nice little pocket. You can shove this under their low of their back. So maybe you're working on some bathing or some dressing with somebody. Hook this side up to just the one side of the lift and help them roll. Now maybe you have more access to maybe a back or a bottom or something like that that maybe you wouldn't have had otherwise. Because I know using this, you know, to roll somebody if you're working on cares can be hard if you're not, you know, don't have access to the areas that you need to have access to. Okay, any questions? That was a lot. Yes?
Bariatric in mind with the list you mentioned, what's the weight max?
On the repositioning sheet?
Yeah, or the
I'm not sure about. The repositioning sheet is a 400-pound weight limit. However, when you think about 400 pounds and the size and the width of a person potentially, you know, depending on how tall they are, I would almost recommend going to a bariatric sheet. Not necessarily because the sheet can't tolerate their weight, but if you think about this being on a person's bed, in my experience, it gets kind of caught up underneath them as they're kind of moving around in bed. So a bigger sheet provides you the same opportunity to reposition them, but it doesn't get lost underneath them. But that's definitely something you need to keep in mind too, is, you know, how much does the person weigh, that type of thing. The one piece of equipment that I did not bring, or the two things that I did not bring that are on page, it's the full body sling lift and then the walking harness. Just some examples of what you can do to like move the person from the wheelchair to the bed or the mat. You can leave the sling in a sense underneath them and just maybe leave the top part hooked up. So now the person has something to kind of rest in, kind of a hammock a little bit. Then when you're getting ready to transfer them back into the chair, it's already where you need to do. You just need to hook up the straps that come through the legs. That's the type of sling that you have. Also, again, wanting to put somebody on like a gym ball, one of those big like Swiss balls, you know, that for balance maybe or something like that. You know, you can hook them up to either the overhead lift or you can use like a walking harness to, again, provide them that extra security and safety. The walking harness, Again, you can just see from the pictures the progression of somebody from standing into then to walking using that platform walker. But the nice thing about that is that, you know, if you're working with somebody, you know, whether it may be walking or something like that, it allows you to then be able to position yourself in a better position so that you can facilitate what you want to be able to do. So it's not like I'm holding the person up and I'm trying to kick their leg forward and block it as they step forward, right? So that's just, you know, something that I can speak from my experience when trying to walk with somebody who has maybe a hemicretic side or a decreased functioning side. Again, putting that harness on them, now I can maybe sit next to them because they're supported. If their knees buckle on them, I don't have to worry about them falling. It helps decrease their anxiety. So maybe they're more willing to participate. So, any other questions?
Go ahead.
All right. Again, thank you very much for letting me come.
Thank you, Michelle. Hopefully some of the OT2s that are going to get on field work can find some importance in that. And good luck out on your field works and happy finals to all. Oh yeah, and please come get more treats.